if they're professionals, they'll let you know ahead of time. All right, so just make sure that you are standing out clearly from your background, that you're not blending in. All right, so for our next example, I'm going to show you 2 short video clips, and there's no sound for these. Okay, any thoughts? What did you notice about those 2 short clips? And if you're not sure, not a problem, but if anything stood out to you, feel free to drop it in the chat. Okay, Grant is exactly right. So he says the shirt pattern. Okay, so when tight patterns appear on screen, especially like tight stripes, they just don't look natural on camera. They almost look like they're vibrating. And I think we've all seen this, right? I'm going to show you a very close-up, exaggerated version of what this looks like. The reason this isn't good is that it can be really distracting. And clearly, it can take away from other visuals, and it can take away from what you're trying to say. So the fix for this is just solid colors. So when Liza and I interview people, we always ask them to wear a solid colored top. Jewel tones like ruby red and emerald green and sapphire blue tend to look good on people, as do pinks and purples. Just make sure that you're not going too bright like neon, because it can be really distracting. All right, next example. Y'all are doing great. What about this one? What do you notice that that kind of stands out to you in a not in a great way? Any thoughts? So, Jay, that's true. He does look super casual. And you know what, y'all? I'm really casual too, but you can only see me from the waist up, so it's all good. I want to read what's on the shirt. Okay, so that's also a good answer. What we were going for here is that the shadow, as Grant said. So you want to make sure that you are not positioned right up against your background if you can help it. So what happens then is it can create shadows, and it tends to have a very flat look. So I want to show you a couple of examples here. Move away from your background and add some depth behind you. So here's an example of a DIY, a do-it-yourself video, where she has some visually interesting details behind her. This is from a video that OpenEye that Liza and I did. And so we prefer interviewing people in their natural environment because it just feels real and it helps give viewers a sense of time and place. But if that's something that just won't work, like if they have a really small office, sometimes people have offices the size of a closet, we always look for alternatives. Okay, so last thing I'm going to show you, it's a video clip. I'm going to go ahead and play that.
And here I am.
Always been outspoken?
No, I'm not outspoken at all. I'm really not.
You're strongly opinionated.
Well, I'm just an ordinary person in many ways.
Okay, thoughts about that clip? I hope you all could see it and hear it clearly. What was going on? Okay, Astra says clinking jewelry. That nailed it. And then playing it. All right, some good answers here. So what I was going for is the jewelry, the distracting clinking of his jewelry. So you know, I've been thinking about this, and I have this. You know, this is Larry King, right? They're professionals. Why do you think? Let's assume they didn't ask him to remove the jewelry. Why do you think he still has the jewelry on, even though it's making noise? Any thoughts? To get attention, okay? He wears it all the time, trying to look cool. It's part of his character. Okay, so yeah, Lydia, that's how I would say it, right? Like, I think this is part of who he is. It's part of his style, and to take it off would make it less of himself. So I think the point here is that a lot of these style rules that we just went through, you can break if it's about your own personal individual style. So before we move on, I have a quick bonus question. Does anyone know who this is? Does anyone know who Larry King is interviewing here in this clip? Morrissey, Denise, yes, it's Morrissey, the lead singer of a band called the Smiths in the 80s. If anyone wants some good recommendations, I have like a YouTube playlist that I can share with you. Great music. This interview was not a good interview. That's all I have to say. Okay, so again, we've just scratched the surface on style considerations to looking great on camera. If you have more questions, if you have specific questions, we can go over them at the end during the Q&A. But for now, we are going to talk about substance. So how do you convey trust, likability, authenticity? How do you keep people interested in what you're saying? So Liza and I have interviewed a bunch of people, like countless people over the years. And as I mentioned earlier, the people who look good on camera are not necessarily the most polished or charismatic. Some definitely are, but there are other qualities we've identified that make them look great on camera. And we want to share those with you right now. We want to show you some examples. To give you just a little bit of context, we almost always conduct pre-interview calls with our subjects. So that helps us establish rapport and learn more about people's stories. We do not share our questions in advance, and we conduct our interviews more like a conversation. So when you do that, when you kind of have more of an organic conversation, it tends to yield more natural sounding responses. And that is really important in video, sounding natural. So I'm going to show you some examples here. And I don't have any participation questions with these, but we can definitely discuss any issues that come up or any questions that you have during the Q&A at the end. So the first word I want to share with you, the first thing I want to talk about is clarity. I have two short video clips here, and as you watch them, I want y'all to think about what these interviewees are doing to get their point across.
I could go on and on about why I love Durham, but in a nutshell, it is the people who fiercely love the community and want to make it better. They want to sit down and figure out the problems and figure out the solutions and implement them. It's my kind of town.
We are here to create the future. We're here to engage the community. And it's not just about Raleigh, it's also about our region. Our region is our strength.
Okay, so you may notice that both of these women, they speak slowly, they use simple words, so they are very direct in what they're saying, and their sentences were short. So when you can do these things, when you can be really clear like that, it leads to a much more memorable video. And as a bonus, it makes you easier to edit, which is a huge plus. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is heart. And to illustrate this, I have two more clips that I'm going to share.
Mike's dad and my dad forged a bond of helping each other that will never be broken. And I've often wondered if the reason that my dad passed several months later is because his brother had gone before him. So, never know.
I now know that my girls can do what is necessary to be successful. There are no limitations to what they can accomplish. Whatever they set their mind to do, they can achieve it.
All right. So those clips are an example of what it means to speak from the heart. And we loved interviewing those folks that I just showed you. When you allow your true self to shine through, and when you can really speak on a personal level, it helps viewers connect with you. So how can you learn to speak from the heart if that's just something that doesn't come naturally to you? Well, a few ideas. So speak to one person. This is a common writing tip, and it definitely applies to video. So don't treat the camera like it's an audience of 100 people and you're giving a speech. And if it's helpful, you may want to visualize the person who brings out the best in you. Remember, we talked about that earlier. You could even put a picture of that person on the camera or recording device if you wanted to. And finally, the last thing I want to share is find a collaborator. So if you're working with a skilled interviewer, that's great. So experienced interviewers know what to do to bring out the best in people. But if you don't, have a trusted friend or a colleague ask you questions and engage with you. So in other words, if you find it hard to relax and kind of let your true personality come through, get someone who you're comfortable with to help them facilitate the conversation. All right, I have one last thing I want to share with you, and that is integrity. And this, I think, is probably the most important thing. The word integrity is often used to describe someone who is honest or has strong moral principles, but there's another way it's used, and that's what we're going to talk about here. All right, I'm going to show a couple more clips.
Mike's dad and my dad forged a bond of helping each other that will never be.
You know what? I'm so sorry. I think what happened is I was fiddling around with this at the very last minute, and I don't have what I wanted to show you. But you know what? Actually, you know what, y'all? I'm going to do this because we're making really good time. If you all are okay with this, I'm going to find it in my Google Drive. Can you give me a thumbs up if you're okay with that? Let me look. Amanda, are you good? Okay, thanks. Because we have, yeah, give me a second here. We've got time. This is what happens when you, at the last minute, make some tweaks. Thanks, Jane. All right. I'm going to share my screen again. I'm just going to try this. I'm going to have to come out of it again and then go back into it, but that's okay. So here's the video that I wanted to share with y'all. Hopefully you'll be able to see it without any problems.
It isn't so much about the products or the services or the programs or the training, development, the things that we do. It's the result of all those things. There are people in North Carolina living better lives today because of the work we do. If that doesn't get you out of bed in the morning, I don't know what will. Well, the Emily Krzyzewski Center is the best thing I've ever been involved in. It's named after my mother, and she believed in education, and she pushed me forward to have a great education, and that's what the center is trying to do. All talent should be given an opportunity to develop, and what the center does, it opens up the door, and actually it opens up the whole world to these youngsters and their families.
All right. All right, thank you all so much for your patience with that. Can you all see my screen again? Are we good? Okay. So when I talk about integrity, I said a lot of times we use integrity to describe someone who is honest, and that's obviously a valid definition, but it can also be used to describe people who act in ways that are consistent with their values and beliefs. So integrity in this case is really about consistency. So in that clip I just showed you, we talked to a CEO, Maurice Smith, who we interviewed as part of a project with another company called Story Driven, and Coach K, who is of course the men's basketball coach for Duke, and he's talking about a nonprofit that he created. So throughout these interviews, these guys needed very little prompting. Their values and their goals and their words and their actions were all in alignment. They knew their why. So neither of them sound rehearsed, but they knew what they were going to say, right? Because those words are in their head all day. So if you want to look good on camera, talk about something that is meaningful to you. So that is our biggest, probably easiest tip. So when we talk about something that aligns with who we are as a person, we often speak confidently with conviction, and we're believable and incredible because we're not faking anything. All right, so to summarize, you want to be clear, you want to speak from the heart, and you want to look for areas of alignment with your values and your actions. So we're going to do the raffle giveaway in just a moment, and then we're going to move into Q&A. So if you have any questions or any kind of feedback or anything you want to discuss, just start thinking about that now. And before we move on, I wanted to mention that OpenEye Creative, our company, we do full service video production. So as part of that, we help interviewees with the things that we've talked about, with the coaching and the direction. If you're looking for coaching specifically, so if you want to kind of improve your camera presence and learn to use the power of video in your communication, I would recommend looking into a company called Better On. Some of you may have heard of them. They're based in Durham, and right now they're running remote camera presence boot camps at the end of each month. So if you're interested in that, I would recommend just checking out that link that we have there. All right. All right. So now we are going to move into our gift card giveaway. So I should mention that in addition to the last minute video swap, we had a last minute change with our gift cards, and that's on me. So I had totally forgotten that a place at the table, some of you may know this, they are undergoing renovation. So I was unable to get a gift card there. However, we do have a $10 gift card to Quail Ridge, which is kind of another local favorite. They're a bookstore. So a $10 gift card to Nolia Coffee and a $10 gift card to Quail Ridge Books. And Liza right now, what she has done, she's been monitoring the chat, and she has input all of the names of the people who have been participating into a spreadsheet. And she's going to use a random number generator to pick 2 winners. So I'm going to hand it over to her right now.
Okay, can you guys hear me? I think, yes, I'm great. Okay, so the winners are, for the gift card to Nolia, it's Jan of Durham. Great, so congrats, Jan, yay! And for the Quail Ridge gift card, the winner is Lydia Ross. Yay! So congrats to you guys. Thanks so much. I think pretty much almost everyone participated, so you were all entered. And yeah, thanks so much for participating with us today. And I think now we are going to open it up for questions.
Yeah, and I'll just add quickly, like Jan and Lydia, we'll reach out to you directly. We'll send you an email and we'll kind of coordinate the handoff of the gift card. And if y'all have any questions for us, if you want to just shoot us an email, you can connect with us on Instagram or LinkedIn. Please feel free. That's our information. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then we can go into Q&A.
Okay, so I do see, okay, a question from Greg and Elizabeth about camera angle position with head and shoulders shot. So I'm thinking, so what you're asking about is when you are setting up a camera for an interview, how should you position yourself or your subject in the frame so that they look the best? So there are there are a couple of different ways you can do it depending on the look that you are going for. One of the ways, I think a way that's actually becoming a lot more popular for documentaries is to actually have people, and this is kind of goes against what is traditionally taught, is to have your interview subject sitting in the middle of the frame, kind of as I am now, looking either directly into the camera or just to the side of it. That is becoming more and more popular. The other way the other kind of option that is commonly used is to be kind of off to the side, like about like this. And as the interview subject, you would be talking to your interviewer right here. So you would be kind of looking across the frame. And that would, so you'd kind of have this negative space here. Your interview subject would be over to the side. So those are kind of the two most common interview setups that we see. I hope that answered that question. Okay, and then what resources or tools might you suggest for captioning? Is that question about how to generate the captions or how to add them to the video? Izzy, if you could unmute yourself maybe and clarify that question.
So I think I understand that how most applications are going to have a function to add them, but whether or not there's a more efficient process, if you suggest getting it sourced out about the efficiency of bots, kind of all of the options for that, just because it is important for accessibility.
Yeah, it definitely is very important. What we do, if you're putting a video on YouTube, it automatically generates captions for you, and it has a really great editor. So if you upload your video to YouTube and within a few hours, it should have automatically generated captions, and you can go into their editor and edit them. Because it does a really good job, but it definitely does not get them completely correct. So that's just a really great free resource to use, and you can export them from that editor and bring them into any, software that you're using to add captions that way too. You don't have to keep the video on YouTube to use those captions. Another way is, to use a transcription service, which can be, if it's for a very short video, very affordable. There's a bunch of different options out there for transcription services, but I don't have one that I would recommend over the others, but there's a lot of comparable ones out there. Okay, Dan Edwards, how do you feel about the use of headphones on Zoom? I'll just answer that question really quickly. I am a fan because I think it prevents any feedback issues that you might have on Zoom. And I think that often there's a lot more clarity.
Yeah, I definitely like it from the practicality because I can hear better and I think the quality of the microphone's better. But I noticed that I'm the only one using them, so I'm feeling a little insecure. And I'm just wondering, is it distracting visually to have them on there?
I mean, I don't think it is. I think maybe if you were using Zoom to record an interview that you were going to include in a video that you were editing, then maybe you would want to come up with another solution. But I mean, I guess it's just personal preference, but I think it's fine.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Technical questions, but how do you remove glare from glasses while using white light, ring light? That is a really tough question because, and you get that issue with all different kinds of lights, and you can even see sometimes with the ring light, you can actually see the little ring in people's eyes, which can be a little bit distracting too. But I think that it's kind of hard to answer that question definitively, but I think it all kind of depends on your relative position to the light and the camera and the interview subject. So I think if you see that issue happening, you would want to adjust kind of the angles between those three things: the camera, the light, and the person you're interviewing. And from John, are there any alternatives to YouTube worth considering? John, do you mean in terms of posting your own videos to share? Okay, yeah. I mean, I think we use Vimeo to post all of our videos just because we think it has like a very clean and professional look. And so I guess, yeah, that would be my recommendation. There are paid plans that come with a lot of different features that can be really helpful. Especially one that we love on Vimeo is when we share our videos with clients, you can actually comment directly on the video so that any revisions that, you know, a client might have, or if you're sharing a video with someone and would like to receive their comments on it, they make that really easy. Oh yeah, and as you said, I also use Vimeo to remove branding, right? Mm-hmm. And then Sarah says, in education this year, there was a lot of talk about equity and not asking students to share backgrounds. Do you have advice on how to help individuals set up backgrounds beside a blank wall that allow for minimal but some personality to come through? Right. Rachel, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good question. It's a little bit outside of the scope of what we do because we're so, you know, everything is so planned and set up. So we're really like outside of the video conferencing world. But I would be really curious to open this up to other people. If you have other thoughts about this question, which is an important one, do you all, I mean, I know that there are, and I'm showing my ignorance, but you know, like people have different, like the green screen, they'll have a different background that you can essentially download. And sometimes those don't look so great, but John says he finds Zoom backgrounds distracting. Yeah. Okay. And Jane says, I've done coverage in all my Zoom meetings.
That's awesome.
Yeah, anyone have any other thoughts about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you did personalize those Zoom backgrounds, I think that's a way to not show your own background, but to have some personality coming through. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I like Lydia and Jane's input. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Danielle's idea is great to kind of make it an activity where everyone creates their own Zoom background. Yeah, I really like that idea. And I think we had another question that I'm going back. Oh, any thoughts about optimal length for promotional videos for your organization's website? So yeah, I think there's definitely an optimal length for different formats. You know, the optimal length for your website is definitely different from the length that you would post on social media. But I think if it's on your website, I mean, shorter is always better, but I think you would want to keep it 90 seconds or less. What do you think, Rachel? Oh, you're muted.
I think that's a good rule of thumb. Yeah, 90 seconds or less. Yeah, I guess any other questions? Good. All right, there's no reason we can't wrap up a little bit early. Yeah.